something very important and very special, and special to me and the people that are gathered around me. This afternoon, we're proudly announcing historic steps to protect the First Amendment right to pray in public schools. So you have the right to pray, and that's a very important and powerful right. There's nothing more important than that, I would say. We're joined by the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, and students and advocates from across America. And advocates they were. They've been calling and writing by the thousands, and you're representing that large group of people. In a sacred principle of our republic, that government must never stand between the people and God. Yet in public schools around the country, authorities are stopping students and teachers from praying, sharing their faith, or following their religious beliefs. It is totally unacceptable. You see it on the football field. You see it so many times where they're stopped from praying, and we are doing something to stop that. Tragically, there is a growing totalitarian impulse on the far left that seeks to punish, restrict, and even prohibit religious expression. Something that, if you go back 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, it was unthought of that a thing like that could even happen, that anybody would even think of something like that happening. That is why today my administration is issuing strong new guidance to protect religious liberty in our public schools. The right of students and teachers to freely exercise their faith will always be protected, including the right to pray. So we call this the right to pray. Is that a good idea? Good, right? You like that, right? 9 federal agencies are also proposing new rules to roll back discriminatory regulations. So we have rules to roll back discriminatory regulations on religious service organizations. And earlier this afternoon, my White House released a new memo to make sure federal funding is never used to violate the First Amendment.
Here with what this means for Christians and others of other faiths across our country are Fox News contributors Jonathan Morris and Pastor Robert Jeffress, and host of Pathway to Victory on Fox Nation. Hello, my friends. What does this mean for our country? I'll start with you, Pastor.
Well, yesterday, the president's action was not about creating new rights, but it was about protecting existing rights, especially the constitutional right to pray. And it's a right that's been under assault by liberal groups like the Freedom from Religion Foundation and liberal courts as well. And you know, Ainsley, when the president told me a few weeks ago he was going to do this, I told him nothing would excite not only conservative Christians, but people of all faiths like this. And here's why. In 1962, when the Supreme Court abolished prayer from schools, that was really the first shot in a 60-year war against faith by government. And many people are believing that the president's courageous action yesterday was the beginning of the end of that war on faith. And Ainsley, I don't think it's any exaggeration at all to say no president in history has been a greater champion for religious liberty, both in America and around the world, than President Donald Trump.
Jonathan, what does this mean for you?
Well, I couldn't agree more with Pastor Jeffress that there has been really a war on our religious right and our civil right to pray wherever we want, including in public institutions like public schools. But there has also been this very strong push to make us think that somehow the separation of church and state means we have to hide our faith. Let me just read a very small thing. This is from Franklin Roosevelt to show how far we've come. This is from the President of the United States in 1941 as our soldiers were off in World War II. He says this: to the members of the Army, as Commander-in-Chief, remember this is 1941, I take pleasure in commending the reading of the Bible, and this is a little Bible that was sent, the reading of the Bible to all who serve in the armed forces of the United States. Throughout the centuries, men of many faiths and diverse origins have found in the sacred book words of wisdom, counsel, and inspiration. Imagine the President of the United States sending this to our troops and it being considered not only normal, but very helpful. That's how far we've come. And I'm glad that the President of the United States today is allowing us to see that that separation of hiding our faith is something that is not American and not constitutional.
What does this mean for the coaches that have gotten in trouble or had to apologize? You had Joseph Kennedy, who was that coach at Washington State in a high school, and he was fired back in 2015 for praying on the field after the games, for violating the school's policy. There was Rick Rice, the Tennessee high school coach, who had to apologize for his post-game prayer last year. And then, Pastor Jeffress, you live in Texas. Prayer is so important to many Southerners, or people all across the world. But down there, people pray before games. What does this mean for those situations? Does it protect those coaches?
Well, I tell you what, first of all, the president singled out Coach Kennedy and about being fired. The president does not think it's right for coaches to be fired for praying. But what this means in the future is this: the only way these rights are going to be protected and upheld is by conservative justices and judges on federal courts. And you know, they say President Trump is on trial right now for Ukraine. That's not what this trial is about. He has committed two unpardonable sins in the eyes of the Democrats, and that is beating Hillary Clinton in 2016 and packing the court with conservative judges who will support the right to pray, the right of religious liberty, and the right to life. And to the Democrats, that's the unpardonable sin. But thank God the president is winning on packing the courts with these conservative judges.
Jonathan, real quickly, I just want to give you the last word.
Sure. You know, I think it sounds like what the president wants, and I think what we all want, is not for a government to establish one religion over the other. Our foundational documents tell us we want the government to stay out of inhibiting our free exercise of religion, and not to establish one religion over the other, but to allow everybody to do and to believe and to say what's on their heart.
All right.
That's right.
Thank you both for being with us.